Well, this is officially a clown show. In the words of Michael Scott, you have no idea the physical toll that 3 quarterback changes take on a fan base. As Arthur Smith and the Atlanta Falcons released their Week 16 depth chart, and it has Taylor Heinicke as QB1, Desmond Ridder as QB2. So we have gone from Ridder to Heinicke to Ridder to Heinicke. This is a panic move. This is a move that honestly might cost Arthur Smith his job. It's an absolute clown show for you to be the head coach of an NFL team, not have the best idea of who your starting quarterback is going into the year because didn't like the decision midway through, made the switch over to Taylor Heinicke, and then after a couple of Taylor Heinicke games, went back to the first guy, Desmond Ridder, and then after a couple of Desmond Ridder games, went back to Taylor Heinicke. Your job as a coach, it includes a lot of responsibilities. But maybe the biggest responsibility is you have to know the best starting 11 players on offense and defense. And for the most important position in all of sports, Arthur Smith has no idea who the best quarterback is on this roster as he continues to flip-flop between Ridder and Heinicke. You know that Ridder is better, hence you going back to Ridder after you benched him the first time. Does Desmond Ridder turn the ball over like it's his job? Yes. Does it cost this team games? Yes. But is Desmond Ridder better than Taylor Heinicke from what we have seen this year? I would say, and it's crazy to say this because of how bad the turnovers have been, yes. Because Desmond Ridder is actually an okay to average quarterback when he doesn't turn the ball over in the red zone, which he has done 5 times this year. But this, in my eyes, is a panic move. This is Arthur Smith going, holy shitballs. We are 6-8. We are staring at a third straight losing season. We just gave the Carolina Panthers their second win. We lost a game in which our defense did not surrender a single touchdown. We have to win out even to have a chance to make the playoffs. Yeah, I'm panicking, and I'm going to go back to the backup quarterback for a second time because I don't know what else to do. I mean, this is a definition, textbook panic move by a coach. And these are the types of panic moves that make the owner panic, that make the GM panic, that maybe we don't have the right guy steering the bus, driving this thing, and potentially driving us off a cliff. Now, I want to revisit a report that came out a few weeks ago about Arthur Smith's job security from Jeff Schultz, who says there has been no win now or else mandate from Falcons owner Arthur Blank to coach Arthur Smith in recent days. There won't be, there shouldn't be. Smith is not going to get fired this week or next week or anytime soon. In fact, the only way Smith isn't back as the team's coach in 2024 is if there's evidence players are tuning him out, hasn't happened, or the team completely unravels. Not there yet. Well, we might be there. When you lose to a 1-win Carolina Panthers team with your backs against the wall, tied for a spot in the NFC South division race, tied for a playoff spot in the wild card, and you lose to a 1-win Panthers team when your defense does not give up a touchdown, those are the types of losses that let things unravel, that let things spiral. And we might see Arthur Smith lose control of this team and Arthur Blank decide we need to make a change at the head coaching job. Because in my eyes, if Heinicke is a clear downgrade from Ridder, like if Heinicke plays out the last 3 games and he might not have the turnovers, which I'm not going to let Desmond Ridder off the hook for the turnovers. They have been atrocious and they have cost this team several games. But if we see Taylor Heinicke lead an offense that is less inspiring from what we saw under Desmond Ridder's 12, 13 starts, whatever it was, that might be the final nail in the coffin for Arthur Smith's head coaching gig in Atlanta. Because Blank and Fontenot, and I don't even know if Fontenot's going to have the decision in this one. Maybe it's just Arthur Blank going, you know what? What are we doing here? We've got a coach that doesn't know who the best quarterback is on his own roster. He switched twice the starting quarterback in just a 5-6 week span, going from Heinicke, or going from Ridder to Heinicke, back to Ridder, back to Heinicke. And ultimately, we didn't improve after any of those changes. Now, if Arthur Smith didn't have a choice in picking Desmond Ridder, that might buy him some time, but still, this is a clown show. This is embarrassing for a fan base. Desmond Ridder, Taylor Heinicke, neither one of them are going to be the starting quarterback in 2024. I mean, for anyone that was a Desmond Ridder truther out there, it's done. It's over. Ridder is not going to come back in 2024 as the starter. Maybe he comes back as a backup, right? He's still on his rookie contract. If they fire Arthur Smith and they draft a quarterback and a new head coach, maybe they decide to hold on to Ridder, or maybe they decide to hold on to Heinicke as the backup. But for all serious competition, no. Neither one of these guys are going to be the starter in 2024. So I guess drop your favorite Desmond Ridder moment in the comments section because it's done. It's over. Now let me know, will Arthur Smith return in 2024? We're going to run through some potential replacements next up on the show, but I don't want to know if you want Arthur Smith to come back. I want to know if you believe the Atlanta Falcons are going to retain or fire Art. I think he might be gone. I mean, if you couldn't tell from the first 5-6 minutes of this video, this is a panic move. This is a move that Jeff Schultz was sort of hinting at, that it's a long shot, but unless things really start to unravel, this is unraveling. This is the kind of stuff that players all of a sudden go, what are we doing? I'm wasting the prime of my career for some of these guys. I'm playing excellent ball like Drake London. I'm playing my heart out like David Onyemata. And we've got a head coach that doesn't know who the best quarterback is on his own team. What are we doing here? That's the kind of shit that makes you unravel, that makes the locker room lose focus. You drop your last 4 games potentially, 3 out of your last 4, something like that, and all of a sudden Arthur Smith is looking at a third straight 6, 7, maybe 8-win season, depending on how the rest of this year goes, and he could get the axe after that. Now, next up on the show, we're going to run through some possible Arthur Smith replacements. If the Falcons do decide to move on from him, we've got a list of names that you want to keep an eye on. But really quickly, Game Time is our fantastic sponsor for today's edition of Falcons Today, because they don't want Falcons fans to worry when you're buying tickets to your next big event. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. Now, no doubt it's going to be a bit of a tough sell to say, why don't you go watch the Falcons this Sunday against the Indianapolis Colts? But if you want to go catch a Hawks game, or you want to get ready for a Braves game in the spring, there's nothing better than a spur-of-the-moment boys trip to a game. And with Game Time, you can do that without breaking the bank. They're obsessed with finding ways to help you save money on tickets. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event and even an hour after it starts. It's the place to find last-minute seats. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code FalconsChat for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, but again, create an account and redeem the code FalconsChat for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Let's run through some potential head coach candidates for this upcoming head coaching cycle. So we'll start on the offensive side here. Ben Johnson is probably the prettiest girl at the ball right now. He is by far the most prized candidate, and definitely everyone is chasing after. He is the white whale for this upcoming head coaching cycle. Brian Johnson, the OC in Philly, might be falling out of favor a little bit with the Eagles' skid lately. Frank Smith is a low-key popular candidate, comes from that McDaniel-Shanahan coaching tree. Don't you think that with Bijan Robinson could be a nice tandem? Bobby Slowik, the Texans offensive coordinator, has done a fantastic job with C.J. Stroud. What if the Falcons want to hire a coach and say, hey, we need a coach who can develop a rookie quarterback we plan on drafting? Maybe Slowik is the guy for that. Brian Callahan has been nothing but consistent in Cincinnati over the last 4 or 5 years or so. Press Taylor in Jacksonville. With the Jags slipping, he might fall out of favor, but I've heard some rumblings about him getting some attention. Now, on the defensive side of things, we can pretty much eliminate Dan Quinn, I think. But Raheem Morris, he has been in line for a head coaching gig, round 2, I believe. Lou Anarumo, he's done a phenomenal job in Cincinnati. If Atlanta kind of wants to go under the same path they hired Dan Quinn under, of an established, well-liked, defensive-minded guy, he's your dude. Mike Macdonald in Baltimore has done a really good job with the Ravens. I think he's going to get a head coaching gig sooner rather than later. Ejiro Evero with the Panthers. He was really popular in Denver last year. I think he might get some interviews. And then there's Brian Flores, who is itching to get a second opportunity to be a head coach again. He has done maybe the best job of any coordinator after, like, say, Jim Schwartz in Cleveland or even Ryan Nielsen in Atlanta this season. Now, the number one guy that everyone's talking about, though, is Ben Johnson, the Detroit Lions offensive coordinator. He is this year's, like, Kellen Moore, right? Every few years, there is some young, up-and-coming hotshot offensive guru that everyone's chasing. And sometimes it works out great, like Sean McVay. Sometimes you get Kellen Moore, which I don't think is working out very well for the Chargers at the moment. But under Johnson, the Detroit Lions have averaged nearly 27 points per game. That is the fifth most since 2022, since he became the OC in the Motor City. So for the Detroit Lions to be top 5 in anything that's not losses, that's pretty difficult to do for their franchise. So for him to have Jared Goff and the rest of this offense to where they are right now, that has definitely gotten a lot of attention. Now, there are 3 openings already. You've got the Chargers, the Raiders, and the Panthers. I'm ranking them in terms of attractability. I think the Chargers having Justin Herbert will probably make that opening the most attractive of any head coaching opening we're going to get soon. Plus, there's just a little bit of stability in LA, right? They don't usually fire coaches after just 1 or 2 seasons. They give guys an extra bit of slack. So as a head coach, you like that, knowing, hey, I don't have to win no matter what in year 1 in LA with the Chargers. They're a bit patient with their coaches and GMs. Now, some other potential openings I could see happening. You've got the Falcons, you've got the Bears, you've got the Patriots, the Saints, the Jets, the Steelers, the Bucks, the Commanders. The Saints and Bucks and Steelers don't feel super likely, but what if all 3 of those teams kind of lose out and maybe you get like a surprise fire, right? That tends to happen at least once a year from some team. I think the Jets is more likely than people might think. I mean, if you're looking around the league here, half of the teams have dealt with quarterback injuries. The Jets have handled it the worst, though. The Commanders seems like a surefire thing. Riverboat Ron, like Paddleboat Ron, he is done in the nation's capital. Now, if I had to predict which teams have head coaching openings, I think the Atlanta Falcons are going to be one of them. They'll join the Panthers, Raiders, and Chargers already. I think the Bears are going to fire Matt Eberflus. I think the Jets are going to fire Robert Saleh. And I think the Washington Commanders are going to fire Ron Rivera. So now we look at these 7 teams here, and you got to ask yourself, which of these 7 openings is the most attractive to the number 1 or the number 2 guys out there, like the Ben Johnsons of the world? The Chargers is going to be up there for sure. The Bears, with the first overall pick potentially, will be very attractive if some coach can say, hey, I can go to Chicago and get Caleb Williams. Sign me up. The Jets would be interesting. The Commanders, I don't think, will be very attractive. I don't think the Raiders or the Panthers will be very attractive. So if it's Chargers and Bears at 1 and 2, Atlanta could slide in at 3, but then you got to ask yourself, and this is where I'm sort of in a predicament. I'm not crazy about this coordinator pool. Like, we ran through those 12 options right there. There's probably going to be 1 or 2 that pop up on the radar. But after Ben Johnson, like, none of them really seem like great hires, or maybe even better hires than Arthur Smith. So if I'm Arthur Blank right now, I'm asking myself, I do a bit of a dick measuring contest. Like, where do I fall in line with these other openings? If I'm not 1 or 2, because the Atlanta Falcons have some good things going for a potential head coaching candidate, right? You got Bijan, you got Kyle Pitts, you got Drake London. You got some really nice young offensive pieces. You might get to pick the quarterback in the upcoming draft, which has some really good quarterbacks in it. Like, there are going to be candidates that go, I would love an opportunity like that. Whereas the Panthers might be a bit of a death sentence. So if Arthur Blank is not crazy about any of the potential candidates after his number 1 and number 2 guys, maybe he decides we don't have a better option. Because if you're going to fire Arthur Smith, you better have a guy who's better than Arthur Smith, right? That's sort of been my train of thought always. Unless it's just a clear and obvious disaster of a hire, which I think if you had to rank, by the way, those 7 openings, if you had to rank those 7 coaches that got fired, I would say Arthur Smith might be close to number 1. Like, he's better than Matt Eberflus. He's better than Brandon Staley. He's better than a lot of those coaches. So if Arthur Smith smells nicer and smells prettier than Raheem Morris to Arthur Blank, maybe you just don't see a change this year. And maybe it's something they put off until next year. Just some food for thought right there. All right. And I just used Raheem Morris as a random example. I do want to end the show on a bit of a random off-the-wall question. I'm rewatching The League right now. I forgot how funny The League was, but we did have like an all-time random Falcons cameo in it. Grimes was in there. So let me know. Name a random Falcons player. Like, the more random, the better. I don't want to see Matt Ryan in the chat. I don't want to see Michael Vick in the chat. I want deep pulls like Curtis Lofton in the chat. So name a random Falcons player for me. All right, that's going to do it for me on today's show. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm sorry that you're a fan of an absolute clown show right now, but hopefully things will turn around in ATL.